So we're talking about the year 2004. Tata had launched Indica, which had kind of had some problems. It was relaunched as Indica V2. It was a success. And then Indigo had been launched. And then September 2004 was when Indigo Marina was getting ready for launch. As an aside, the Marina name was suggested by me thanks to my childhood having spent on the Marina Beach many nights. Okay, so but that's getting beyond the brief. But so I was in my office, which was in Nariman Point, and the launch was supposed to be at NCPA, the Baba Theatre, and I get a call from my client saying that, look, where are you? So I said, look, I am in my office. So he said, Nariman Point? I said, yeah. So he said, look, can you go to NCPA right away? I said, why? What happened? Are you coming? He said, no, I'm stuck outside. But Mr. Tata is going to come to NCPA. I said, so he may ask some questions. I said, about what? He said, I don't know. He's coming. Please go. So I said, okay. So I went to NCPA. Marina was there, and there were two engineers from Pune who had come with the car. And I also called the event manager. I didn't know what Mr. Tata was going to ask. So the car looked nice. So I was talking to the engineers. So they said, yeah, Mr. Tata is going to come because this is something he selected. This color is something he selected. So I said, what's so great about the color? By then, Mr. Tata's car arrived. It was, I think, Tata Safari. He got down with, I think, SR. He came and looked at the car, and then he talked to the engineers. They went around the car 6-7 times. And then he called me and he said, look, what do you think about the car? I said, yeah, it looks nice. He says, do you see any fault? I said, no, I don't see any fault. So then he pointed out a little patch on the side of the door. He said, can you make that out? So I said, no, sir, this looks fine. Okay, so how is the event going to be? So I said, the event is, this is the stage, the car will be here. So he said, why is the car in the back? Why can't you put the car in the front? I said, no, we're going to have some dancers, so which is why the car is in the back. He said, okay, fine. Thank you. Then he spent time talking to the two engineers from Pune who had come for the launch, and then he left. After he left, I went up to the engineer and said, look, what is this all about? What is going on? So he said, no, Mr. Tata had seen a car at some global auto show where the car looked as if it is electroplated. You can't technically electroplate a car. My good friends, the engineers sitting in that corner, smiling very wisely, you can't literally dunk a car and electroplate it. So the way apparently Mr. Tata found out was you put some kind of a coating on the car and then you actually manually scrape it off, and it looks as if it's electroplated. So Mr. Tata had sat and discussed this with the plant engineers, and I think in the month of July or whatever, they tried making a car like that, and it had many yellow patches. As a result, Mr. Tata rejected that car, and he told his engineers, look, maybe we don't know how to do it, maybe we should give it up, but you guys want to give it a try? Give it a try. So these guys kept trying, and finally they got a car which he thought was good. And so and they brought it to Bombay for the launch, and Mr. Tata wanted to see it before it was launched. And I said, wow, I mean, here's a man who is the CEO of India's largest group of companies, and he drops everything, lands up to the launch of a car event 6 to 7 hours before the launch to check on the color of the car. Now, what does it take for a senior business leader to kind of take so much interest in something which may be trivial, right? And that got me thinking, and then I found this book, which some of you may have read, called The Fifth Discipline. So the lesson which this incident taught me is that a leader sets a learning agenda for his company, and then he then works with the team shoulder to shoulder so that they learn and they become better. And the book, Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, is about learning organizations. How do you make an organization smart, better? And that can be the agenda of the top man. And that was a great, lesson learned as far as I was concerned based on this little incident with Mr. Tata. Let's move on to another story. How many pillars will you have in your house? This story goes back to Dr. Kurian. As you know, Dr. Kurian is no more. He passed away in the year 2012. And Amul has this practice with their agencies that once a year, the agencies bring their creative and they present it to the chairman or the MD with his whole team. And everything is cleared in that one long meeting. So apparently this meeting, the agency presented a lot of stuff, and one of the brand managers said, and normally Dr. Kurian doesn't talk. He asks everyone to talk, so everyone is giving their comments. And one of the brand team guys said, look, I don't like the blue color, can we have this ad in green color? At which stage Dr. Kurian said this pillar is an architect story, and it goes something like this, that suppose you want to build a house and you hire an architect, and the architect gives you a nice design. It has 4 pillars. And you look at the design and you tell the architect, well, I don't like 4 pillars. I want only 2. And so the architect says, okay, and he removes 2 pillars. And tomorrow the house collapses. Whom will you blame? Will you blame the architect? Or will you blame yourself? So he says, you hired a consultant. They have thought and given you a suggestion. If you have an issue, say what is the issue. Don't go and tell them to do something, right? Vijay, when you built this building, you must have come across this kind of situation. So, and that kind of, and in fact, Dr. Kurian is no more. Mr. Vyas took over after him, and now R.S. Sodhi runs the company, but they still embody this belief that hire the right consultant and give them total freedom to perform. I don't know how many of you are aware that the hoardings which come up for Amul, nowadays they also have these ads coming in the papers. That ad is created by an agency called Dakuna, and the client sees the ad after it appears in media. So the agency has freedom to create an ad and put it out, and the client sees it when it goes out, which calls for a tremendous amount of trust between an agency and a client. Probably this is unique for anything in the world, right? And if you remember, Rahul Gandhi went and hugged Modi, and then there was this little thing which came up saying, embracing or embarrassing, right? Always in good taste or something like that. But this kind of stuff they do, they look at the news, even if it is midnight. I don't know when he embraced or when he embarrassed Narendra Modi, but the ad came out the next day morning, right? So there was no process approval. So when I wrote that, and I said, look, every chapter I try and give some kind of managerial principle behind what I learned. So for Dr. Kurian, I said, what should I do? And Dr. Kurian was not a big fan of big management gurus. He set up his own IRMA Management Institute. So I said, for Dr. Kurian, I will go back to a Tamil saying. So if you look at it, Dr. Kurian was saying, hire your advisors carefully, then let them take the right decisions. And this is something which Thiruvalluvar writes about in Tirukkural. As you know, there are 3 books in Tirukkural, and I think Kural number 518 or so says, Idanai idanal ivanal mudiyum endrarayindu adanai avankan videl. So Tirukkural says what I think Dr. Kurian has been practicing, and then he has embedded it into the Amul system of working, right? So that's a second story, a very different kind of learning which I had. The third is from my early days in advertising. This happened actually in 1980. I think Naru, if he's here, he will remember this campaign. So normally clients say, and agencies keep agonizing over writing body copy. And a lot of clients turn around and say, no, who's got the time to read body copy? Why are you guys wasting your time on all this? Write something, But here is an example of a 6-ad industrial product campaign. This client from Pune had called us. We met them. And they said, we're going to change our name. They gave us a brief. We went back, presented a 6-ad campaign. And at the end of the presentation, the MD asked me, saying, look, these are interesting case studies. Where did you get this from? So I said, no, sir, these are your own stories. I went through your literature. I found this, and I've crafted this based on that. He said, yeah, these are good. So will you leave this with me? I said, yes, sir. Anything specific reason? He said, no, I want to see if I can write something to help you people along. I said, okay. So I left those 6 pages of copy, and I didn't know what was going to happen. 7 days later, those were the days before fax, before email, all that. So I got a call from their local office saying, a bunch of papers have come for you from the MD's office. Come and collect it. I went and collected it, and I started reading it. And I found that was probably the best industrial copy I've ever read. Okay? The person who wrote this copy was a person called R.D. Aga. And the name of the company was Thermax. In 1980, Watson became Thermax. And let me read one para from one of the 6 ads. The headline is how to get hot water at 40 degrees below zero. This is, of course, written by the copywriter, the creative director in the agency. But Mr. Aga wrote this, the body copy. 6 ads, roughly 800 to 1,000 words per ad was the body copy. This one says, how to get hot water at 40 degrees below zero. Thermax does it. Siberia means many things to many people. To us in Thermax, it meant the design of a containerized boiler suitable for outdoor installation in ambient temperatures of minus 40 degrees. At minus 40 degrees centigrade, curious things happen. Birds drop dead in flight. Steel becomes brittle. Rubber disintegrates. And lubricants freeze. And then it goes on. 6 ads, all written by the managing director of the company. And it's not that he said, take my copy. No. He sent it saying, please consider this. So when I read the copy, I felt this was fantastic. And internally in the agency, I had a fight because the creative director said, I will not let you use the client's copy. So I had to actually go to the managing director and get his permission to use the client's copy. Finally, the 6 ads ran. I mean, of course, the concept, the art was done by the agency, the concept was by the agency, but the body copy was written by the client, the managing director of the company. This campaign turned out to be a landmark campaign. It built the company called Thermax. It also went on to win several industry awards for being great advertising. In those days, advertising awards were given to genuine campaigns, which you actually see, and those of you from advertising know that is no longer the case now. In 1995, February, Thermax went public. February 16, 1996, R.D. Aga passed away a sudden heart attack. February 19, 1996, Anu Aga, his wife, became the executive chairman, and the company has gone on to do great things. What does it take for MD of a company to take such passion to such detail, right? So the lesson learned was no job is too small for a leader who's driving a change agenda. So in this book, Good to Great, Jim Collins writes about great leaders are a paradoxical combination of personal humility plus professional will. This is a sign of humility. He didn't tell me your copy is bad, I will write better copy. No. In theory, he will write better copy because he was English. I think he was honors English graduate from Oxford, so he will write better copy than me. But he said, I'm going to give it a shot, take a look at it, see what you want to do. Okay? And it turned out to be a good decision for us to take the client copy and run it. Okay, so this is the third story. So let me move on to the fourth story, which is the story for which I wanted to call Ramesh Ramanathan here. Ramesh Ramanathan, currently MD of Sterling Resorts, was then the Chief Marketing Officer of Sterling Resorts. I used to handle his account for a bit. So one of those meetings, he came and told me that, Ambi, this book I read, yeah, very good book. And he told me about this interesting book he had read. And he said, it's a very thin book, it's a great book, you like books, you should read it, blah. And I listened to him, and then I don't know, I blanked out, okay. So a month later, I was at Landmark, and I went to the book section, and I was trying to remember which book Ramesh Ramanathan told me about. And one of the shop assistant there came and asked me, sir, are you looking for something? He said, yeah. I said, yeah, I'm looking for something. Sir, what is the name of the book? I said, I don't remember. Sir, what is the name of the author, sir? I don't remember. So I said, I know the book is about customer service. And I think it's about some airline customer service. So then the shop guy said, sir, I don't know how I can help you. At which stage, Hemu Ramaya, who had started Landmark, was in the store that day. So she saw this kind of thing happening. She walked up to me and she said, may I help you? So I said, look, yeah, I'm looking for this book. I don't know the name of the book. I don't know the name of the author. All I know is it's about customer service. And it's about, I think, some airline CEO, I think Scandinavian Airline System CEO has written this book, but I'm not sure. So she said, we have that book. I said, yeah? He said, yeah, we have that book. And then it took 5 minutes for her to find the book. And then she is telling the guy who was there, saying, customers asking so precisely, he's asking for a book and you couldn't find it. So I said, look, what precisely? I didn't know the name of the book. I didn't know the name of the author. So she said, no. Our training for our sales staff is simple. You don't need to read the book entirely. But in all the books in your section, you should read the front cover and the back cover. If he had read the front cover and the back cover, he would have known there is this book and he will be able to find it. The name of the book is Moments of Truth, written by Jan Carlson, the former CEO of Scandinavian Airline System. Today, if you go on to Google and you put and I did this experiment yesterday, put customer service, book, airline, this pops up on top. That time you needed someone like Hemu to kind of locate it. And I wanted her here, but Gautam, hi. I wanted her here, but she's out of the country. And so hopefully we'll try and get her at the Bangalore talk or whatever. What does it take? Therefore, what is the lesson we can learn is that, from Ramesh Ramanathan, the lesson I learned is that you get different types of clients. When we deal in any B2B situation, you get different types of clients. You get the innocent client, the regular client, the hero client, and this is, Carl Jung is categorized as 12 stereotypes, right? And in that, sometimes we are lucky to get a sage client, a client from whom we can learn. I was lucky that there was many such clients I had, Harish Bhatt at Tata, another guy with whom you can have a chat and you'll end up learning a lot, or Mr. Gopalakrishnan, who always is full of ideas, new thoughts, and new articles. He'll be able to give you a copy of an article, a copy of a book, so you end up learning a lot. So if by some chance you get actually someone, the sage as a client, and then you hang on to this client and keep learning more and more from them like the sponge. So that was the fourth story. The fifth is an interesting story. Okay. So let me show the person. Okay, this is Mr. Premji. All of you know this is Mr. Premji, and he's sitting in front of the rainbow logo, rainbow flower logo, which was designed by Shambhit Sengupta. So this logo had been designed. We were the agency working on a campaign. So we had created a 3, 4, 5 ad campaign. presented it to Mr. Premji. He had asked some changes. I flew down to Bangalore, presented it to him, and he wanted some more changes done. And then I was supposed to go back after 10 days, but for some reason I could not go, and Mr. Premji could not give me an alternative time. So I requested, can I send this guy, Santosh Menon. So Mr. Premji's office said, yeah, send him. So Santosh landed up in Bangalore. The meeting started at, I think, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Meeting ended at around 6 p.m. It was a simple meeting, but it was good to have a face-to-face meeting. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Premji asked Santosh, so Santosh, where are you based? So Santosh, I'm from Bombay, sir. Oh, you've flown down from Bombay? Yes, sir. So when are you going back? So Santosh said, sir, tomorrow morning. So Mr. Premji said, why tomorrow morning? You can go now. There is a 10:30 flight to Bombay. So Santosh, I'll call Sahara. It's a good airline. It's a very reliable flight. Take that and fly. Go back tonight. So Santosh had actually planned some party hopping or some pub crawling. So he kind of escaped and ran out of the room. And he came back to Bombay and told me the story. And then I realized, why was Mr. Premji wanting him to go back that night? And later I heard that even Walmart had a principle that any of their supplier companies come into Bentonville, they are told, come in the morning, leave in the evening. So you're going to end up spending the night, you're going to spend money on hotels, that hotel cost is going to get loaded onto us. Right? So you come in the morning, leave in the evening, no way will you spend a night in a hotel at our cost. Okay? And that's something which struck a chord. So for cost, for a company which is cost conscious, controlling cost is not a passing fancy. Okay? And in a sense, as a company, we used to practice this, saying, look, if you can fly out in the morning, fly back in the night, do that. Don't waste money, company money, which is client money, spending time in a hotel. Because you spend time in a hotel, you meet with friends, you spend money, etc., and you have a hire a cab the next day morning, you end up spending 1.5 times what you would otherwise spend. And finally, it gets loaded. Again, traveling economy. In India, travel economy. Don't travel business. So these are some things which we learned working closely with Wipro for many years. So move on to story number 6, which is to understand what business are you in. And I'm going back to the year 2000, 2002. And Maha will empathize with this. That was a time when in the media there was a report that, Infosys is going to overtake TCS next month, next quarter, next year. Infosys had a better image than TCS. TCS has a very old fuddy-duddy image. Tata Group, steel, salt, whereas technology is modern, Tata is old. And Tata Consultancy Services, a name like consultancy is so old, so British. And services, get into consulting. And that's a time, Anderson Consulting had been born, it got rechristened as Accenture. So, will TCS be able to take this on? And there were some debates within the company, and probably Maha will remember some of that, to say, look, should we change the name of the company? Should we call ourselves Tata Consulting? Or should we change the entire name? And these are serious debates going on. And at one of the meetings, I remember Maha was, I think, there, and Mr. Ramudurai turning around saying, we are a services company. We cannot drop that from our name. So he said, our name will stay. And that is the business we are in. And soon after that, the company went public, and we did a bit of image building advertising for TCS, including this one which says, IT put India on the world map, and who put IT on the India map, and a whole series of, I think, 4 ads which was run. August 25th, 2004, IPO of TCS opened, and it was oversubscribed 7.7 times. And it actually didn't open at the right time. The timing was not probably perfect, but it opened brilliantly 7.7 times. Today, I think TCS market capitalization is probably more than Infosys and Wipro put together, right, Ma? Okay. TCS was the first Indian company to hit a market cap of $100 billion. This happened in April 24 this year. And this is a company, less than 15 years ago, people said Infosys is going to overtake them, the name is not good, this is not good. But Mr. Ramudurai clearly understood that the name will stay, the ethos will stay. So very often, big bang, American CEOs have this big thing about big bang change. Whereas I saw this little small bang change happening in TCS. So change management need not always be a big bang. It could even be small incremental changes. And John Cotter in the book Leading Change says that by understanding the stages of change and the pitfalls unique to each stage, you boost your chances of a successful transformation. And to some extent, I saw the transformation of TCS from Mr. Kohli to Mr. Ramudurai and later to Chandra, right? And this happened almost imperceptibly. But internally, of course, a lot of things are happening, but from the outside, there was no big bang change. So that was the sixth story. And the last story I have is how an entrepreneur took a more risky route to brand building. So let me play this ad and then tell you what happened. So this is a brand called Naukri, which is owned by a company called Info Edge. This ad goes back many years. The company had got some funding, I think 4 crores or something they had got from VCs. And they had called the agency had been briefed, and the agency had created this script. And at the end of the meeting, the agency, Sanjeev Bikchandani was the client. Sanjeev, the agency said, yeah, great, we'll go and do it. So the agency got scared. They said, look, Sanjeev, this is a very risky ad, right? It may fall flat, right? He said, why? So this is very risky because, this ad, if you miss the last 2 seconds, you will not know which brand was being advertised. And in P&G code of advertising, if it's a 30-second ad, the brand name should be repeated 3 times. And the first time the brand name should be repeated around 14th second of the ad. Okay, and it should be repeated both in audio terms and visual terms. In this one, there is no audio mention of the brand at all. It comes with a little logo in the last 2 seconds. So they said, look, this is a very risky ad, boss. So you're a small company. You got some venture funding. We don't want to suggest something and then blow up your money. So Sanjeev said, apparently, look, we got 4 crores now. Let's blow up 2 crores with this. Okay? Let's not blow up 4, let's blow up 2. We'll keep 2. If this doesn't work, you guys give me a safe ad. And they went on, the ad ran, this was a very successful campaign, and then this was followed by an even more successful campaign using a character called Hari Sadhu. Okay, H for Hitler, A for arrogant, I for idiot, R for rascal. Right? You remember even that. Good. So, November 22nd, 2006, Info Edge was listed in the stock market. It was oversubscribed 50 times, and it had a listing gain of 95%. And Sanjeev deserves all the credit I've given him in the book. Though when he read the chapter, he told me, you've been too kind. I said, no, this is what, I think you did. So the point is, entrepreneurs have somewhat different gene. In their scheme of thinking, it is not to try than to try and fail. right? And that's what, Adam Grant, professor at Wharton, has written a wonderful book called Originals, which is a pretty different take on how entrepreneurs behave. And we saw from close quarters how Sanjeev Bikhchandani, actually took risks but hedged the risks very carefully. So these are kind of 7 stories I've told you, and in the book there are more than 25 such stories. These stories include ex-army people whom I dealt with, including Group Captain Vijay Kumar. He also finds mention in the book. There is a story about Chandrababu Naidu in the book, whom I call India's first CEO, Chief Minister. I had the benefit of dealing with him once. There is a story about Mr. Damodaran and how he turned around UTI. And of course, Central Board of Direct Taxes and my tryst with the North Block in Delhi. And good lessons which I learned. And of course, there are stories about small Indian companies, large Indian companies. I don't know whether Vivek Reddy is here. Is Vivek Reddy here? Oh, okay. So he was threatening to come because he sacked us. So there is a story about clients who sack agencies. So there are 25 different stories in the book, which I'm sure you will enjoy. The interesting thing, which I think I've done, is that every story ends with some lesson I learned, and I've tried to link that lesson to a managerial book of some sort. Did I do it intentionally? In a sense, yes. Once the story was written, I said, look, what is this funda? Where is this funda? Which book is it there? And I went and pulled that book and I put it. And my good friend from IIT days, Chandri, actually gone and made a spreadsheet, which when I read, I got blown. So Chandri, I'm making a public acknowledgement to you. I don't know how many hours he spent creating that fantastic spreadsheet. So that's the book. It's a fun read. It's an easy read. As Gopal has written it in today's review in Business Standard, you can read it in one shot on a flight from Mumbai to Kolkata. So it's an easy book to read. So thank you.